Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be once again talking about that major bomb cyclone that we talked about, or I think it was earlier last week maybe, but I'm going to be retouching on that subject because a lot of people have been asking about what happened with that, so I'm going to be going over that in this video. Now, before I get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather-related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social medias. Today's comment of the day is going to be, what is the most memorable hurricane in your opinion? For me, I'd actually have to say Dorian, just because of the intensity and how much I was paying attention to that storm compared to the other ones before when I wasn't as into weather. So I would like to know what you guys think though. Now we're going to be viewing our GFS model here, and here's going to be the look in the beginning. This is only going to be by 2 p.m. today. You can see the yellows. That's where we're going to have some severe weather today. I'll talk about that in a second. We have a 1011 millibar low pressure system. As it moves offshore here by about 8 p.m. tonight, it's going to be heading towards Friday there. We can see the low pressure system has moved offshore, and then by 2 a.m. on Friday, March 6th, we can see it's well offshore, but we have a 1005 millibar low pressure system. That's going to change very, very quickly. Here's our severe weather risk for today, and you can see we have a slight risk down there for the borders of Georgia and Florida, also a marginal risk in the surrounding regions there. I'm going to be going live this afternoon, so please come and join us. Be on the lookout for that, probably from about 1 p.m. till maybe about 4 p.m. So we're going to be going live. Some supercells and tornadoes possible today. Here's that tornado risk. We have a 5% chance within the brown and 2% within the green. This is the same risk we had for Tennessee during the Tennessee tornado. So obviously, even though it's a low probability, you have to take it very seriously because very major tornadoes can still happen. And again, we are expecting supercells to be possible. We're about to move on and take a look at some of the wind by the time we're at about 2 a.m. And then we're going to move forward to when this low pressure system is going to start to really bomb out. Alright, and here's that wind by 2 a.m. on Friday, March 6th. Not a lot going on. We have some of the greens and yellow showing up, which is indicating 20 to maybe 30 knot winds, but all of that is offshore. So not a very major situation yet by 2 a.m. Tonight, Friday, March 6th. And we, again, have a 1005 millibar low pressure system. Let's go ahead and move towards Friday afternoon, though. This is going to be Friday at about 2 p.m. on March 6th. We can see those snow showers that I mentioned in yesterday's video. Also, some brief cold air moving in that I had talked about earlier this week, that we were going to have some cold air this weekend. Some moderately cold air, not very, very potent at all. But we do have a 997 millibar low pressure system by this point offshore of the Delmarva about, I would say. So already rapidly dropping in pressure. That's only 6 hours later. And I mean, 6 hours before this frame, we probably had about a 1002 millibar low pressure system. I didn't show that frame. And here's the winds by this point. A lot more yellows, a lot more reds, indicating the areas of 30 to maybe even 48 knot winds in those reds. We could see some of the greens and yellows making their way on shore for Long Island, maybe Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard as well. And then some areas down there for the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So obviously by this point, the wind is starting to actually impact the eastern United States a lot more in areas on shore. All right, we're about to move on and take a look as we head towards Friday night and move into Saturday, and we're about to rapidly see this low pressure system bomb out, absolutely drop in pressure very quickly. Now, on the previous frame, we had a 997 millibar low pressure system, remember, and now we're looking at a 982 millibar low pressure system just 6 hours later at about 8 p.m. on Friday, March 6th. We see those snow showers still around for the mid-Atlantic and also in through the northeastern states of the United States. And this one has been trending very much so closer to the eastern United States. Just a couple runs ago, it was well offshore, not even really bringing us winds or precipitation. Now, it could be really bringing us a lot of winds and potentially some precipitation. If it continues to trend westward, then we will see major implications as far as precipitation, which would be very, very interesting to say the least. Let's look at those winds real quickly, and we can see the reds and the purples have just expanded and blown up by this point, bringing yellows and tons of greens onto the eastern United States. Definitely Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket looks to be impacted the most, as it would most of the time in a situation like this, but all along the East Coast, we're at least seeing 20 to 30 knot winds from this storm. It's just throwing these winds on shore. So, I mean, a very, very intense wind situation for the entire East Coast, but especially the northeastern coast of the United States. Now, we're about to move on towards about 2 a.m. on Saturday, and we're going to start to take a look as this one continues to drop rapidly in pressure. Now remember, on the previous frame we were looking at a 982 millibar low pressure system. Now by 2 a.m. on Saturday we're looking at a 967 millibar low pressure system. So now it is just continuing to completely just drop in pressure. Look at all the snow on the north end of that storm. If this was just a little bit closer to New England, we would be looking at a major blizzard, guys. This would be the storm of a century. I mean, this is just an intense situation, and it's just teasing us. It's just offshore. And I mean, if it continues to trend west majorly, I could see how it would be possible, but I mean, very, very slim at this point for seeing that snow come on shore. The winds are definitely going to impact us, though. But look at the winds just so close to the low pressure system there. Looking at 50 to 64 knot winds there, just along the low pressure system where we're seeing those heavy snows. That would be a monster blizzard. But we do see some of those oranges and reds making their way onshore to especially Massachusetts there and Maine, and then even coastal regions of New Hampshire, which some people don't even know that exists, but there is a little bit of coastal region there. We see the oranges and reds make their way, maybe for Boston even, but definitely Cape Cod, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard, again, just like before. But the greens and yellows making their way onshore to the East Coast, all the way down even to Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and, up and down the East Coast, basically, which is going to be the 20 to 36 knot winds. So it's going to be a gusty weekend for the East Coast for sure. Now we're about to move on towards Saturday. Look at the middle of the day, and then later in the day, we're going to see the storm move out, and then we're going to start talking about some other models and what they're showing briefly. So this is about by 8 a.m. on Saturday. You can see we have some pretty heavy snow still to the north of the low pressure system there, just offshore of Massachusetts there. If this was, 100 or 2 miles closer to New England, we would be looking at a very, very major situation. Very close call there, but it really just didn't pan out. The cold moves in a little too early. The low pressure system's a little too slow, and I don't think this one's going to connect at all for the northeastern United States. Really just a tease here that's just never going to really pan out. Let's look at those winds once again, and still we're seeing the 50 to 64 knot winds there. Very major winds there in the purple. Even in the reds, we could see a lot of that makes its way onshore to New England still. Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts there. Definitely getting probably anywhere from about 25 to 35 knot winds by time we're reaching about morning time Saturday. So still a very major situation. A 966 millibar low pressure system still. Let's go ahead and move on towards about 2 p.m. on Saturday, March 7th here. And we can see it's a 968 millibar low pressure system, so slowly weakening. We see the snow is not quite as intense to the north of it. So pretty much coming to an end by this point on the GFS model. Now let's take a look at what that Canadian model shows, and I wanted to show this not because it's a very reliable model, but just to show that there is still that very slim chance that this one's closer to the coast. Here's by about 2 a.m. on Saturday, March 7th here on the GEM model, and you can see it's a completely different story. 964 millibar low pressure system, so a little bit more intense than what the GFS is showing, and we see the snow makes its way onshore for Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. It would be a very far southern New England snowstorm, but nevertheless would be very major. Do I think this is going to happen? Absolutely not. I think I would much rather trust the GFS and the European model, which would say this one does not connect for the East Coast here. But it's still possible, and I wanted to show this, even though we're pretty much within 54 hours of this happening, which means it's very close, not a lot of time for stuff to move around too much, but still a little bit. Let's look at those winds on the Canadian model, and absolutely just a monster here. We see the reds make it onshore for Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Long Island, probably Rhode Island, probably not Connecticut, which is indicating the areas of 35 to even 50 knot winds there. Probably Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and Cape Cod would be having 50 knot plus winds because they're in the purples there. So, I mean, just a very major situation here on the Canadian model as opposed to the GFS model. All possibilities are still on the table, but I would say the GFS has a much more realistic outlook here. And for your comment of the day, I asked, what do you guys think the most memorable tornado is? And Gary Pohlmiller said the EF5 tornado that struck Joplin, Missouri. Definitely, I agree that is one of the most major and most memorable tornadoes we've had in recent memory, especially just considering the populated areas that it hit. It was a very unfortunate event there, and just something we should always remember to learn from. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and social medias, and I will see you guys in the next video.